All right. In fairness to those who have arrived on time, we're going to go ahead and get rolling with today's Safety Council meeting. So welcome. We're glad that everybody's here. Hope you guys are fully adjusted to the sun being out in the morning again. We are going to be talking about emerging trends in safety technology today with Tony DeAscentis with Ving. And then just before he speaks, we're going to have Dean Bidlack give us some updates from BWC. Just some webinar logistics. Please use the chat feature if you want to network or ask questions. We are recording the webinar, and as most of you in attendance probably know, that will go out later this week. I'll try for today, but probably later this week, and in the form of a newsletter with some other information that will be timely for you. And then again, as always, if you have ideas for a meeting topic or a really good speaker, we would be happy to have you share those with us. And again, just a nod to the steering committee members. These are the people that help pull this all together, and I couldn't do it without them. So I appreciate their guidance and support for all the things that we do as a safety council. And then just some ongoing changes. These are the same things. This slide won't change for a while. So we're still doing all these virtually. The rebate program still suspended. There's no semi-annual reports until further notice. Same thing with CEO attendance requirements. We do have, hopefully you were able to attend last month's BWC mega meeting. I found it, I thought it was a really great topic, great speaker. The next one will be in April 13th. And we will not have a monthly meeting that month for that reason. Also, just a reminder, you can win some money being here today. We do a drawing for $100 at each meeting. And then all the people who attended every meeting will be in a drawing in June for the grand prize drawing, which we have not selected exactly what that'll be, but it'll be a super cool prize package. And the person that wins for today will be notified after the meeting. Registration process. So hopefully you're here because a month or so ago, you got a link from me when I pre-registered you for this meeting today. You will notice you can always forward those and share with somebody else if you want them, if you think they'd be interested in attending. Or I send a separate informational thing about the meeting, and you can forward that to them as well, and they can register themselves. Or ask them to add somebody. These are just the dates on here. We have scheduled out through January, but I just wanted you guys to have the dates. It's always the first Tuesday of every month, except again, we're not doing an April meeting. So there's that. This is just information about the April 13th meeting. Again, I know that's a long way off, but next thing you know, it's here, and wow, it's right before tax day. All right, I will now turn it over to Dean Bidlack, and he's going to give us some updates from BWC.
Good morning, David. Good morning, everyone. I just got some short announcements today. The first thing is the industry-specific safety program. There's good news and not so good news. The best news is you don't have to fill out an SH-29 form just to get your rebate after we made site visits and did safety interventions with you. So what we're doing now is we just have to show that you've completed the item either by attending a seminar or correcting items that the safety consultant notes for you. This took effect for all the private employers July the 1st. And in January next year, it'll become the same rule for the public employees. So we have to split those up because they're on different time frames. Also, we don't allow online pre-recorded options for our training. So you have to go to a live training seminar for ISSP. The biggest thing you're going to hear from the safety consultants is we are now doing some priority outreach, and that's two-phase. Number one, we're looking at those that are the cost drivers. So part of ISSP and some of our other safety programs were meant to make you self-sufficient. So guess what? Now it's time to be self-sufficient. And what that does, it frees our people up, myself included, to go to those places that we haven't been before. So we're trying to get out to more employers to offer safety services. So that's the big priority. We're also watching the OSHA website, seeing where they have priorities, because they have a new emphasis program on tank cleaning, things of that nature. So we want to make sure we're out there trying to help those businesses before OSHA walks through the door and says, I'm here to help you. The other part we're doing is daily outreach. So sometimes it seems a little like we're jumping the gun, but we get a report every day on the claims that happen. And we filter that down and we send you an email or a phone call to let you know that you had a claim. And it turns out it's been really helpful because we've had some that the claim was filed under the wrong number. So we had people at a temporary agency working in a company and they use the company's risk number. Or we've had somebody that was, they just fainted for health reasons and it was not a workers' comp injury. So by me getting that information and getting back to them, the company within a day or two, it's been helpful so they can get those corrected before it becomes a bigger problem. And the last thing I want to mention is also the mega meeting, Wednesday, the 13th of April. We're going to have a keynote speaker, Erica Geschwin. I really like her title. It says, now what? How to lead by bringing your human to work. And I think they mean fully caffeinated with a bear claw or donut of your choice to come to work ready to perform. So that's what we're working on. We are starting to get back out in the field more days a week. And I think that will continue. We're just trying to take a conservative approach on how we get out to the field. So we want to make sure we don't put our people in danger, and we want to make sure we don't put you in danger. So if you have any safety protocols when we do come on site, all you have to do is let us know. We'll follow everything that you ask of us, or we will not come. It's as simple as that. I thank you all, and all of us are a phone call or an email away if you need any help. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dean. As always, wealth of knowledge. So we appreciate you being here. All right. So a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, the emerging trends in safety technology. So in the session, you're going to gain valuable insight into what technology is out there, and it's ranging from virtual to augmented and in-field wearable safety devices. This sounds so super cool to me, and I can't wait to hear more about it. I hope you guys are in the same boat. So Tony DeAscentis, and I pray I'm saying his name right.
You're good.
I'm good. Okay. So here's some information about Tony. Obviously, he's the CEO and co-founder of Ving, and it tells there what they do. He's got 25 years of experience, and he is just chomping at the bit to share that with us this morning. So I am going to turn over the screen to you, Tony. Thanks for being here.
Okay. So I think you have to enable me to do that. And I'll
see if it'll let you
give
do
you
it
a
now.
second.
I have to stop my share.
Okay. So there we go. We got it now. Share sound, screen, and share. Scheduling made easy is not the window that I thought would show first, but we'll go ahead. I don't know what that is. It's a good thing it's something easy to read, and presentation mode. Great. All right. Well, thanks so much. Deb, you should be able to see my screen now. Are we good to go?
Yep. I see your
All
screen and I
right.
can hear everything fine.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this beautiful day in Ohio. We are certainly being treated to a fantastic fall. Got to spend some time up on Lake Erie this past weekend, and it was just an explosion of color between the lake and the trees and everything else. So let's enjoy these days while we can, and go out and be hiking around and doing some fun stuff, and staying safe while we're doing it. Don't forget about that. Safety at work and at home and at play. So today's session is safety technology in the workplace. And notice how it's 101. And if you remember back from your school days, your high school days, your college days, anything 101 was entry level. So that's what today is all about. We're going to explore some technologies that push the limits of your imagination and your budget, if you will. And then we're going to do some blocking and tackling about things that are not necessarily emerging technologies, but may not be in place in your place of work, which means that they technically could be emerging technologies at your particular environment. So the whole idea here is to get you thinking. First, a little bit about me and my background. Been spending about 25 years of working with top performing teams, mostly around technology has been a catalyst for the teamwork that I've done around knowledge transfer and skills development and change management and organizations. So I've always been leveraging technology and different types of emerging technologies throughout my career. So this is always kind of a fun session for me to do. I really enjoy talking about the things that are available and within reach today, and how might we get them in action at a place of work, as well as to think ahead and say, by year end 2022, what might we do with virtual reality or something in our organization? And how do we use this to channel the energy in the company into a positive outlook around our safety culture and training culture, and get people really engaged for skills transfer and really engaged to share information with each other. I always say that, like, it's kind of a cool thing when you can hear people in your company talking about safety training after they've just come from it, or engaging with a piece of new safety technology out in the plant or out in the field, and they end up talking about it. And that's really what we want. We don't want it to just be an event and done, and we want people to support it and talk about it. And so these are the kinds of things that you want to be thinking about when leveraging technology and engaging those learners in that safe environment and creating a more safe environment and a stronger safety culture around your company, and how you might use technology to sustain this versus just a kind of come in the conference room, get trained and move on once and done. We're about leveraging technology to create habit. Leveraging technology to prevent injury in this particular focus of a session. So today, feel free to ask questions throughout, use the chat. I'll try to keep a little eye on the bubble here. Or if you have a little new technology that you've shared that's kind of related to it, feel free to plug it in the chat, and we'll bookmark it, and I'll go research it and hopefully think about putting it in the next workshop. So in today's workshop, basically what we're going to do is we're going to spark some insights and get you to think about new ideas and new applications for some type of emerging technology in your organization. We're going to cover a wide range of tech, some in reach, and some might be a little bit out of reach, and some just might be intriguing. Maybe it'll motivate you to do some research and think about how it might fit into your environment and how you can leverage it to create momentum around your safety program and your safety culture, obviously help prevent injury. We're going to look at a variety of products. There's many like these out in the industry. I have no affiliation with any of them except for our company, obviously Ving, which is definitely an emerging technology used all over the place. But the ones that I'm going to show you and demo and show little videos on, I'm not promoting them as, like I have a relationship with them or anything. They're just ones that when I'm out and about with our customers, or I was just out in Denver at the Independent Electrical Contractors Conference and a variety of other conferences. And believe it or not, in the past month and a half, I've been to 5 different conferences in a month and a half. So people are definitely back out in the field. But while you're at these conferences, you get to see all these emerging technologies and talk to the vendors and things like that. So those are the kinds of things that I'm showing you today. I just wanted to make sure you knew that I wasn't promoting necessarily any of them with a working relationship. Walk away with a plan on how to explore and try new tech out. So we're going to talk about, I think there's 6 key things that we'll cover today that you need to think about when you're going to implement new technology in your organization. And it can act as a really nice takeaway for you from today's session as a checklist of things to pay attention to. And then, as I've mentioned, some of these technologies are emerging to established. And so just be thinking about if it doesn't sound so emerging to you, are you using it in your organization already? Have you ever thought about using it? Maybe it's something that you forgot about that you saw in a catalog or at a location one day. Maybe it's time to rethink it and see how it might work for you in your location. And see why this isn't advancing. There we go. So let's start off with a fun one, virtual and augmented reality. This first one is, I just think they're fascinating. It's emerging across all industries. So you're able to find content out there from literally now from like the one that I saw out in Denver was produced by Siemens, and it was for electrical contractors. You literally just put on the headset and the hand gear, and you could go in and work on electrical circuitry and be coached and mentored by an instructor who was somewhere else in the country, and feel like you were in that environment and totally immersed in it. And what we know from research is that anytime we can engage more senses, we feel like we are able to retain and reuse that information. Research shows that we will retain and use that information more effectively than not. I mean, think about the case where, remember when you were a kid and you would walk in the door and you would smell your mom's spaghetti sauce percolating on the stove, or you'd walk into a particular restaurant and hear a song playing on the speaker. And in either of those situations, that sight, smell, hearing takes you right back to that situation where something happened and you can almost remember it like it happened yesterday. Well, this is the same thing when you think about using emerging technology like virtual reality or augmented reality in the workplace. Think about immersive experiences and how they can tap into the more senses. And the more senses that we have involved, the more likely we're going to be able to recall, just like the smell of that spaghetti sauce, you're right back in that kitchen. Just like that tune that you heard that maybe reminded you of something when you were in school, you're right back in that scenario, versus always looking at a PowerPoint or always listening to the same trainer over and over talk to us about safety. You've got to mix it up. You've got to figure out ways to involve more senses, because the research shows clearly the more senses that we involved, the better off we are for retention and reuse of critical on-the-job safety information. Now, one of the things that you can think about, okay, so putting on headsets and all that kind of stuff is a big step. But one of the things that I read about not too long ago was a study that was done by NIOSH and National Institute of Occupational Safety, Health and Hazards, I think is the acronym. And they did a really cool immersive experiment with audience. And what they did was they put 2 groups of people went through training on how to evacuate a building that was on fire. And one group sat and listened to an instructor talk about the steps and precautions and things to do and not do via PowerPoint and just talking to them. While the other group was in a different room and they were exposed during the PowerPoint and the discussion and to somewhat of a get up and move around the room kind of experience. They were exposed to some heat, like a heater, the kilowatt heat coming into the room, the smell of smoke, and some audio visual cues on top of that. And what NIOSH found was that the group that went through the PowerPoint scored higher on the assessment immediately at the end of the session than the group that went through the immersive experience. However, 30 days later, the group that went through the immersive experience scored exponentially higher than the group that just sat and saw the PowerPoint. So, lesson learned, get more senses involved, think outside the box as to how you might do this in your particular environment, but let's take a look at two tools of emerging technologies for virtual and augmented reality. So one of the things, oh, I forgot this slide was here, I apologize. So one of the things is to key in on the 4 reasons why you might want to explore this on top of what I just shared. The first is safety. Anytime we can put people in a situation that's mimicking real life, obviously we don't have the same dangers. You know, if we want to teach somebody about working from heights and put a harness on them, we can put them in a virtual reality mode versus on top of the building, or in any other type of situation. We can control the environment with augmented and virtual reality. So the safety of the individual in an immersive environment versus a real world immersive environment is going to be protected. Repetition. This is a big thing, obviously. The more we practice, the more likely we are able to recall. It's that old adage story of going between point A and point B, where you're walking through a field to get to the beach, to get to the ocean. And that field is extremely high with weeds. And the first time you go, you're batting down the weeds and trying to get through and can't really remember the route and zigzagging back and forth. And finally, you emerge at the beach in the ocean. The second time, you can see your footpath a little bit, so you get there quicker. The third time, you can see more of a pathway, and you get there in the most shortest possible path, and you reach your goal. So you're able to practice and practice and practice until you have it committed to memory, and you get to where you need to be, that milestone, much quicker. Augmented and virtual reality really helps us to do things over and over and over until we feel like we've mastered it in a particular environment and we're ready for the real world. Oftentimes in the real world, we don't have enough time to do the repetition during training over and over and over, just because of the nature of where we had to travel to take the course or the availability of the instructor and things like that. Consistency of message. When I travel around the country and talk to all different kinds of business owners, safety managers, supervisors who have multiple plants, multiple locations, and decentralized teams, one of the things they always bring up is consistency of message. It's the old telephone adage. I'll tell you something, you tell somebody else something, they tell somebody else the same thing. And by the time it gets to the end, the message is either changed dramatically or maybe even just some of the key points have been changed. And with augmented and virtual reality, it's the same message and same content over and over and over. So there's not a whole lot of deviation, and you can start to get to the point where you're recalling information before it's getting presented to you. The same thing is true around if I have that decentralized team and I want them to all get the same exact message, but they can't do it on the same day. How might I leverage a technology, whether it's augmented or virtual reality, to promote a consistency in message? I know we also run into this huge problem when we're working with people who have multiple languages on one job site or in one factory or in whatever they're doing. So you have to be able to communicate in English and in Spanish. So oftentimes we're using a safety manager who's also a supervisor. They're really good at what they do, but they may not be a trained educator, trainer, let alone be proficient in multiple languages. So things like augmented and virtual reality, as well as other tools out there, can really help you with that consistency of message. And certainly on resource savings. You might think, oh, well, augmented and virtual reality are probably expensive to do. First of all, know that the price points have come way down and are very affordable to just about anybody. And I always tell people, if you like this kind of technology, you don't have, if you have 300 workers, you don't need 300 headsets. You just need 4 or 5 of them and cycle people through over a period of time. But when you think about resource savings, think about the offset from traveling and going to different places or bringing instructors in and things like that. You have the opportunity to really kind of shift budgets and capitalize on bringing in new technology in and getting your team excited about the process. So let's take a look at a virtual reality tool, and I got a short video that we'll go through to do that.
So why VR for training?
I want to tee this video up a little bit. I'm sorry. These two individuals are both career safety managers who have gone into technology and have literally worked with thousands of safety managers across the country. A handful of years ago, they decided to develop an emerging experience for safety training and focus it around 3D. Virtual training and headsets, and just the whole 3D images. And so this is their firsthand experience in working with people in virtual reality.
So why VR for training? Comes down to a fundamental aspect of the technology. It's a connected learning environment. We're actually in the learning experience versus just passively watching. That's the advantage.
In VR, you're immersed in the content. There is a connection that viewers have when they're in an environment, and they're able to look all around. They're able to take in all the senses of sight, hearing, and emotion that comes with being in a low incidence, high risk scenario. And that can be anything from a pediatric trauma patient coming through the doors of a critical care access facility to training for an active shooter situation.
So immersive training technology has many benefits. One of the three that really stick out is increased interest and engagement. People are excited about being in the experience because they're actually in it, which leads to better impact. The impacts their whole learning experience. And what does that actually give us that everybody really wants? Higher retention rates. If we can have our students walk away from the learning experience and understand the content and retain it, it's a win for everybody.
We spend a lot of time talking to our clients to better understand what challenges they're facing in the training industry. And one trend that we're seeing right now is how to connect with adult learners in a more effective manner. We've got the solution. It's virtual reality. You should see these people when they put the headsets on. At first, they may feel a little disoriented. That's a fact. But then they put it back on again. And then they put it back on again. And sometimes it's hard to get the headset away from them. But the truth of the matter is, there's excitement there. Adult learners want something new. They want something fresh. And we're able to provide that.
What makes this technology affordable is the fact that it uses simple app-based distribution, just like you would on any mobile phone. And that it's iOS or Android, and it's all driven by a learning management system that serves up the content and keeps track of everything for the organization.
Virtual reality training is going to be the biggest and most impactful advancement that the training industry has seen, period.
And without a doubt, we're starting to see virtual reality pop up in so many different places in our personal lives and in our work lives. It is going to become as seamless and interactive with us as the use of a PowerPoint. I'm convinced of it. People are drawn to these kinds of immersive experiences. And as the price point comes down and the amount of content continues to rise, it's going to be just as familiar to us as downloading a bunch of safety talks from the web. But you're just going to be able to bring your group of people in and have 10 headsets and have them all put them on and experience it right then and there. First tip, when you're getting new tech tips, make sure that when you have a plan for when things go wrong. So we all know those unfortunate times when you're working on your laptop and you get that blue screen of death and everything crashes. Or when you go to plug something in or use something and you find out that the last person didn't recharge it. And now you have to wait till it charges. So when you go out and you pick a new technology, you're going to have a lot of hype around using an emerging technology in your organization because you want that to take its own life and people to talk about it and stuff like that. But you also want to make sure you mitigate your risk around when things go wrong, because you don't want that to take on a life of its own and undermine your program. So if you have clear steps as to here's what we need to do when something goes wrong, here's our backup plan. I always like to tell people, if the idea is that you're bringing a bunch of group of people into the room and you're going to use a certain type of technology during your training, what happens when it doesn't work? You have to be prepared to open up your PowerPoint and go through the PowerPoint. But let's say the technology is out in the plant or in a truck and people are dependent upon it. It's not a controlled environment as much as you doing the training right then and there. So you have to have some protocol and some steps around, if this particular technology is not working, here's the process for what you do now. That way, when people become dependent upon the new technology, they still understand that there is a backup plan and how they should engage it. Today's environment, most of the technology that we work with is really experiencing 99% uptime all the time. But Murphy's Law does creep in from time to time. And it is important that we understand what the process is when something does go wrong. So then another type of emerging technology that we're starting to see, we've seen it in our personal lives for quite some time now, and in gaming environments, if you're familiar with this particular game where people can run around the city and they can find these characters, and then they get points for finding them. You can see it's just a city street on the handheld device there. It's the same city street that's in the big picture behind the handheld device, and we're projecting images onto the screen. We're starting to see a lot of augmented reality in vacation planning and in purchasing clothes or furniture or paint for your house, where you can literally just hold the device up and change the color of your walls in your own house. And then decide on what color you want. In this particular application, it's fantastic use of technology for decentralized workforce, especially if you have somebody who's out in the field by themselves on a regular basis. I also like to say it's also extremely helpful for when you're in the plant and you're surrounded by people. This is a good example of augmented reality, where somebody's holding a simple iPad, and the camera lens is reading what it's looking at in front of them and recognizing the piece of equipment and pointing out various portions of that equipment that are used in this particular maintenance routine. So imagine if you have a worker that's out in the plant and they've been trained, but they just need a quick refresher. Maybe they're a new hire or something like that. And there was a station where they could just grab an iPad and hold it in front of the piece of equipment, and it would automatically tell them about what's going on at that particular, with the particular piece of equipment. You can see here there's color coding, red meaning bad, green meaning okay, kind of a thing. They have on-demand information to help keep them safe on the job, as well as protecting this potentially very expensive piece of equipment, and them doing the wrong procedure and experiencing breakage in equipment, which now goes into downtime for that manufacturing line and all that kind of stuff. So this is an overlay. Here's a quick video of somebody using augmented reality on a construction site.
Safety is a vital part of every workplace, yet safety information can be difficult to navigate and implement on site. Imagine an app that gives you access to critical site information wherever you are. Safety Compass is the answer. With live, up-to-date data at your fingertips, notifications will warn you of surrounding hazards the moment you step onto the job site. The Safety Compass utilises augmented reality technology, allowing you to identify potentially hazardous areas through your smartphone in real time. The Safety Compass uses assisted GPS technology to accurately pinpoint hazardous areas within a multitude of work sites, including construction, mining, and manufacturing. With the tap of a finger, you can expand on any identified hazard, allowing access to all associated safety information. With an easy-to-use interface and interactive mapping technology, everyone can stay up to date every minute of the day. The Safety Compass. real-time safety in your pocket.
Now, personally, I believe that this kind of technology should just really take on where you have these overlay images, even more so than the virtual and the augmented reality. I can see so many of our workers have mobile devices already at their access that they would be willing to use or issued to use, where literally they can just pull it out of their pocket at any point in time and get a display of what they're looking at on their screen with some helpful tips on how to be safe. Now, if most of you are familiar and have a web-enabled device and you go to your Google search engine, you can actually add right now to your Google search engine a little, you probably can't see it here, but it's a little camera lens that would go right in the search bar. And when you click on that camera lens, it will actually open up your camera and it will read your environment. And as it's reading your environment, you can click on the little button and it will actually tell you what you're looking at. And so you don't even have to do anything except for download this plugin into Google Chrome. And when you see it in your search bar, you press play, you press on the camera, and literally anything you point at, it will start to recognize. Now, once you get into complex machinery, I don't know that it will do the same, but it's free, it's easy, and it's already happening. So I can see this kind of wave coming where as more and more things are indexed or companies index their own machineries, it's going to be pretty simple to retrieve. In Google Maps, you already have augmented reality where you can get a real time, real world view of just about any street. So if you're walking down the street in a city or in the town that you live in, where Google cameras have already gone through, you literally can map your directions and hold it up and look down the street, and it will tell you where the coffee shop is. It'll tell you where all these things are and where your surroundings about you. So we're already starting to see this creep into our day-to-day. I could easily see people creating these scenarios for their own equipment that they sell and environments that people end up working in. And it's obviously already happening with Safety Compass. Second tip, establish a time and a place for the technology. So one of the things that people always say every time I talk about getting your cell phone out at work is they're like, oh, well, we can't have people have cell phones when they're on the manufacturing line. We can't have people using their cell phone when they're driving. We can't have people using their cell phone in this scenario. Well, those are all very much reality of day to day. But unfortunately, we have to communicate company policy to make sure people really understand that there is a time and a place to be using the new technology that we've brought into our company, and how that technology gets used in that particular environment, and so that we're using it responsibly versus while we're driving down the road or anything like that. So make sure that when you bring a new technology into your organization, that you have created some type of rules around when it's okay to use it, when it's not okay to use it, and what your expectations are around using it. And then, of course, communicate these to people to make sure that they're all on the same page. Signs and alerts. Now, this isn't such a new technology. It's not really an emerging technology necessarily. We all have different kinds of signs in our manufacturing facilities, in our break rooms and things like that. A lot of the advantages around these kinds of things are because they're easily modified. You know, they can kind of catch people's attention. Although, you know, I kind of argue a little bit on that one, depending upon what kind of sign it is. If it has to have some movement to it to really catch their attention, or people just keep walking by it. It's kind of like that picture that you have in your house. You might have bought it because it meant something special to you at one time, and you took time to think about where to hang it in your house, and you hung it in a spot where you would see it all the time. Well, fast forward 6 months, 12 months later, and then ask yourself, how many times have you walked by it and not even seen it? We get used to these kinds of things being in the same place at the same time, and they become part of the background versus the forefront where we're going to see it on a regular basis. So you have to really pay attention to where your signs are, that they're dynamic signs and that they're really attracting people's attention in a way that you can get them to recall the relevance of the safety information, recall the steps that'll keep them safe. Relevance is a big thing, right? So what does it mean to me? These signs that, say things like, your company name here, well, the signs say like has worked X number of days without a lost time or injury. I see these kinds of signs all over the place and we take great pride in them. But, when we ask the worker, how often do they read that sign? How often do they just walk right by it without even noticing it? You'll be surprised at how many people could actually tell you what that number is or not. So we have to establish some relevance. It's nice to have signs like these, but maybe it needs to be accompanied with a message from the senior leadership team on what this means to have these days without lost time injury, financially to the company, personally to our workers, and those kinds of things. So my takeaway for this particular type of emerging technology and others that you might bring in is that leadership needs to be involved. There also needs to be a sense of relevance as to why you're sharing this information with me. Of course, I know you're sharing it with me because you want me to understand how many days we've gone without injury and what a safe place you're working at. But what does it mean in the bigger picture? And how does it affect the organization? Some people lose lose track of the message because they've lost track of the relevance. I know that when we talk to a lot of people about training, especially if you're doing online training, it's always good to hear from the safety manager in a virtual world or the CEO or somebody who has a higher vision across the organization as to telling the worker, here are the 3 reasons this training is important. Here are the 3 reasons days without lost time injury are critical to us, and explain how they have an impact on the organization in a positive way, that what we were able to prevent from happening in the way of financial loss or personal injury. People relate to these and they bring your emerging technologies to life, and it gives people a sense of connection to what the meaning is behind the numbers. So be sure to couple your emerging technology ideas with leadership messages on relevance. This is a quick look at a type of technology that I've seen in action in several different warehouses, whether it was the Right Height or others. But it is a great way to cause pause, get people's attention with digital signage, if you will, in the form of lights, but they do something to attract somebody's attention.
It happens all the time. Hurried traffic moves through a facility crossing paths, creating dangerous situations. Warning signs and mirrors may help, but if just one driver or pedestrian is not paying attention, the consequences can be costly. For traffic detection in these areas, your solution is the Safety Signal Warning System from Right Height. Safety Signal lets drivers and pedestrians know that traffic is approaching from multiple directions. The sensitivity and size of each detection zone is adjustable to each application. Safety Signal actively detects oncoming traffic and immediately presents high visibility LED signals, either yield or stop. For even greater visibility, a bright blue signal lights up the floor. Safety Signal is easy to install. Plug it in and it's ready to go. Configure Safety Signal for any type of intersection, 2-way, 3-way, or 4-way traffic. Here's how it works. If traffic enters the detection zone from one direction, the other directions see an amber yield signal. If traffic is detected from 2 or more directions, a red stop signal is presented to approaching traffic, the remaining directions see yield signals, and the blue light illuminates the floor. If traffic approaches from all directions, all approaching pedestrian or motorized traffic is presented with a red stop signal and blue light on the floor. With the safety signal, you'll improve productivity while protecting your equipment, products, profit, and most importantly, your people. The safety signal warning system, only from Right Height.
So what I really like about this particular digital signage is that it's interacting with its environment. So when something happens, it causes a signal. It's not just a static thing. As we walk by it, it just is there to look at. It literally is recognizing what's going on in the situation, and it is producing a cautionary signal to protect the workers in that environment. So people begin to realize that there's relevance to the digital signage. It is teaching them to be cautious in certain environments and in certain intersections. And then the color coding is dynamic to whatever the situation is. So when you're looking at digital signs, think in terms of how are they interacting with your environment? How are they changing with the changing environment? And really helping to grab people's attention and engage them. Third tip, technology needs a home. So when you go out and make an investment, whether it's headsets for virtual reality or wearable devices or things, just make sure that you have a place for it. So we want to avoid things just being put on a shelf without proper storage. We want to make sure people know that we're protecting these assets. They cost us money. We want to make sure that we extend their shelf life and have them around in working order as long as possible. So establish a place and an expectation that that place gets used to store the technology. If it's a mobile technology, of course, it's a place, put it here, plug it in, dust it off, whatever the deal is. If it gets mounted to a ceiling or it gets mounted to a machine, that's a little bit of a different type of home, but at least we know the home that it's going to be in and the environment's going to be in. So we can start to take a look at that environment and say, okay, how is that environment affecting this mounted piece of technology? Is it getting oily and greasy and dusty? And if so, how often does it need to be cleaned? And how do we take care of the technology's home, if you will? So as part of your plan, if you have a good home for your technology, when you go into leadership and you tell them, you know, how you're protecting the investment in this technology, it's going to be a great check mark in your favor to show that you're taking fiscal responsibility for the money of the company and making sure that we elongate the life of the product. Talking about wearables, this is a big deal. So many of us have wearable technology, from Fitbits to Apple Watches to you know, basically our mobile devices that we keep in our pockets. And so many of them, of people are using them just as an extension of their day-to-day and just have them with them at all times. So when we think about these types of wearable technologies, of course, smartwatches pop right up and come to mind to so many of us. There's so many reasons, as you can see on the screen here, as to why somebody might wear one of these in their personal life. But also think about some of those workers that you have that spend a lot of time on their own or are working shifts late at night with a smaller crew, or out in a truck making deliveries or running up and down stairs on a regular basis. Not everybody needs to wear a smartwatch, but maybe some of these people that fit these scenarios could benefit from wearing one. For example, the Apple Watch has fall detection on it. So literally, if I were to fall down, if I had it turned on and I were to fall down a set of steps, it is programmed to dial 911 or in case of emergency, and let them know where my geolocation is and those kinds of things. As a runner and a cyclist, I have my geolocation on my watch turned on all the time. So if I don't return back from a run or from a long bike ride, for some reason, I'd rather have somebody know that I've crashed or something's gone wrong and be able to find me through my geolocation. But think about that in the workplace. It's a simple fix to have somebody, when they come into the office, get the Apple Watch, put it on, go out and do their thing for the day. When they're done, they put it back and charge it for the next day. There's also a variety of other things that we can do with wearables, such as smartwatches, such as things as reminders and data trackers and all kinds of things that can be useful to increase the on-the-job safety for that individual. This is something that's been around for a while as well. Light up vests, they certainly make a big difference in visibility of people out on the road. But the reason that I bring it up is not so much to point out a light up vest or something like that, but to point out the next technology that we're going to look at, which is somebody who's taken LED to I think, the next level. And if you've ever seen these in action or wore one, you would know that it just changes everything for the person that has to work in dark or near dark conditions. It's about their visibility for themselves to be productive, but as well as to other people seeing them on the job site.
We're always around heavy traffic and heavy equipment, so not being seen is pretty dangerous.
There's a lot of stuff up here that can get a guy hurt. 90% of our work is to set it up to do it safely so everybody can go home.
We got traffic going by out here, you know, we need to be visible to the traffic and to other people.
Whoops. I didn't know I couldn't do that. Sorry.
It's like being in a lit room.
It's been like a guardian angel, man.
So one night we had First Energy in the neighborhood after a storm, and I looked out and there was a handful of people down the street working on a telephone pole that had those on, and they looked like an alien invasion, quite frankly. It was kind of cool in a way, but it really, I mean, it made an unbelievable difference how I could clearly see these men and women working down the street. Their visibility to me was just spot on. And then when I had an opportunity to try one of these on at a trade show once, and I couldn't believe how that light doesn't mess with any of your vision, but yet it lights up the entire area around you. It frees up both of your hands. And then you were able to do a side-by-side comparison to traditional light or some type of headband beam light that you would put on. And the difference was just 180 difference. I mean, it literally changed the ability to see and work on the job. Of course, these are the kinds of things that are going to help you prevent injury on the job if you can see much better what you're doing when working in situations where it's dark and or nearing dark. Number 4 tech tip, don't be afraid of change. So it's often the case where we're afraid to go ask for more budget to implement a new technology, or we're not necessarily sure how well it's going to work and these kinds of things. But we are often aware that sometimes when we are anxious about change, we don't know why, because on the other side of it, we can look back and we say, wow, this is working out great. It's literally helping us to reach our particular objectives and goals with this program, and then some. So don't be afraid of change, but do your homework, right? So as many of us would do already, don't go out and buy sweeping changes in technology and then, you know, use all your budget and all that kind of stuff. Start small, find a pilot area, pick something in your organization that can be improved. and or something in your organization that you know that would be a benefit if it works. You don't want to pick something that's so low risk that when it works, it's like a so what. You want to pick something in an area that you've been thinking about for a while, that you wanted to change it up, whether it's to reinforce the safety culture, get people energized around your safety culture, or there's a particular area that has high risk that you're just thinking, there's got to be a better way to do this. Just start small, take baby steps, partner with your technology provider, see if you can get them to send you a sample or something that you can try out, and then make sure that you track your data against it so that you can benchmark your improvements, so that you can say, okay, this emerging technology is really working for us. Here are the reasons why. Now I'm going to go ask for budget for it. And if it didn't work, then maybe it's just the wrong technology or the wrong process. So change it up again, make some adjustments in your plan and apply it to a different area, or try a new technology in the same area. But don't be afraid to try things, and set the table with the team that you've assembled to get feedback on this stuff with, that we're going to try some stuff. We hope it all works out great, but some of it will have some lessons learned and we'll adjust from there. One of the last technologies, we have a couple more to explore here, is the exoskeletons. And if you've been to a few of the Ohio Safety Council meetings, conventions down in Columbus, you may have had opportunity to try some of this stuff out. I think it's particularly fascinating at how these types of technology, wearable technology, can help us to avoid injury, especially when we're dealing with those situations with highly repetitive movements, such as lifting or holding things overhead, and these kinds of things. It's all about taking and being able to wear something that is going to give you almost that superhuman strength and durability. This is one of the products that I think is fantastic for elimination or prevention, I should say, of lower back injury.
The focus of the Exobag is the logistics industry, both warehouses and also, of course, logistics service companies.
Exobag is a passive exoskeleton, and it challenges active systems by A, being much lighter, and B, it does not need to be recharged. We need a solution that is worn on the body, an assistive device that helps relieve the stress on the lower back. So the Exobag allows the user to move completely free, but has a relief to the lower back by taking the forces when bending down and releasing those forces when moving up again. They are all transferred into the legs. That's how it works.
So I don't know about you, but personally, I would even wear one of those when I was working in the yard. There's been so many times where you tweak your back or whatever, and to have something like that is that easy to put on and to move through would be fantastic. Now imagine if you were working a assembly line like that individual for 8 hours every day, lifting and twisting and all those kinds of things. How much of a difference that would make for that individual and their productivity, as well as their ability at the end of the day to go home and lead a very active life and not being exhausted from working all day. So a lot of different advantages from the exoskeleton type effort technology. Number 5, just so everybody knows, we're going to wrap up in less than 5 minutes here. I apologize for going a little bit over. Started a little bit late, but just we'll be done within 5 minutes. So make sure you include an employee feedback loop. Absolutely critical when picking a new technology to implement into the organization. Don't just plug it in and say it works great. Let's meet with our team, whatever your cycle is, but purposely asking questions about feedback. And if you, oh no, it's fine, ask what's fine about it. Tell me some scenarios where you used it. What happened? Why was it fine? How did it work? What could have been better about it? Make sure you're gathering this data on a regular interval, again, so that you can improve it and maybe make those fine-tuning adjustments along the way. Anything from storage to use to maybe you need a different version of the same technology, any of those kinds of things. But as well to show management that when you ask for budget dollars to do things with emerging technology, that you have a closed loop feedback with your employees to help you to use it properly and get the most out of the investment along the way. Cell phones. Literally, everybody's got them, as we know. We've already talked about that. It's just a staple in our day-to-day. I always ask people if they use their cell phone at work, and literally 90% or better say yes. Then I ask them if they're allowed to use it at work, and over 50% clearly say yes. They use it on a regular basis for work. So it's just about thinking about your particular company and your environment and how you might want to integrate the use of cell phones into their day-to-day. One of the things that's absolutely critical to realize is that the modern workforce today is used to using the cell phone to do anything that they do in their life, whether it's communication or looking up a how-to video on doing something. So when we bring them into the workforce and they don't use these mobile devices, it's really somewhat counterintuitive to the learning process and to the work environment. So I always encourage people to say, look for positive ways to use mobile-ready technology to help you support and foster repetition around behavioral safety. So what kind of safety tips can we deliver to them on a regular basis to keep safety top of mind? What kind of apps might we put on their device so that they can track things like a job safety analysis, site analysis, or tracking near miss reports, things like that. Make it really easy for people to supply information back into the environment and to receive information into their day-to-day environment. As you know, we do a lot of stuff with microburst training and microburst operational and quality tips for organizations. And we see this trend across the country on a regular basis where people are using their employees' mobile devices for a variety of things. One of the big things that we've seen just take off like crazy across the country, obviously with COVID-19, is employers using apps to keep track of, people who have been exposed to COVID or near COVID, or and how to prevent the spread of COVID in the work environment. And we're just seeing a lot of use cases for this kind of thing. And as we get wraps around COVID-19 and how to exist in the environment, we're seeing these apps really emerge into different types of situations where they're tracking people's proximity to other people, and what kind of insights can we get from their work environment and infectious disease and things like that in the workplace and spreading. But this is a very common use we're seeing in a lot of places. One of the other things is location-based training. So you can certainly turn on a geolocator and you can help people receive training based upon where their location. We find is that there's a lot of challenges with getting an employee to turn on their geolocation at work. Privacy issues and things like that. So one of the things that we've done is we've implemented a QR code. So you can literally create a QR code for anything, any piece of information these days, and you can stick it onto a piece of equipment or into shelving unit, and then ask the employee to scan that QR code to retrieve a 90-second video on how to avoid lower back injury, or a 5-point checklist before you operate a new piece of machinery or open that electrical box. All things to do with right place, right time, safety training tips or operational tips. But this is simply through a mobile device. You just scan it and retrieve it. QR codes are everywhere and they're getting used for everything these days. And of course, you want to be able to have some tracking so you understand compliance on the back end. And our last tip of the day here is include upper management all the way. So if you look at the previous 5 items, if you have got a plan around each of those 5, and every 30 days you find yourself in a leadership team meeting, you will be able to give a nice little report on the progress that you've made with the investment in emerging technology in your organization. And you will be able to do it in a very methodical way to earn the trust and credibility of that senior leadership team when you're looking for budget dollars. So when you get this presentation, you'll see that there's a page called resources. Each one of these hyperlinks will lead you to a variety of different case studies and or tip sheets on how you might think about implementing emerging technology in your company. They're all very quick reads, 5 minutes or less, jam-packed with do this, do that, think about this, think about that kind of stuff to help you go out and select new technology. Thank you all so much for having me in today, Deb.
Thanks,
really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Real quick here. Hopefully you guys can see that. We have his Tony's information there. Just to wrap up, we will do the drawing. Keep your eye on your email to get follow-up information, and Tony will be sharing those slides. I'll be also sharing those with you guys. And our next meeting is December 14th with safety leadership. Alonzo Kelly with Kelly Leadership Group is going to be talking. There's also an evaluation in your email. We appreciate feedback. And then there's my contact information if you do not already have it. Again, thanks everybody for being here today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, and that you take something back and learn that and bring that back to your company. So thanks for being here today. You guys be safe out there. Have a great week, and I'll see you next month.